We have arrived at our second Holy Week of the pandemic, with people participating in this service from home instead of the pews of this church building. At this time last year, we were all holding our collective breath and waiting for the surge of COVID-19 cases that the experts said was sure to come. It hit a few weeks later, and then more surges followed until the baseline of cases was orders of magnitude greater than that first surge. Thankfully, over 3 million doses of vaccine are being administered each day right now. Thankfully, there is a new beginning in sight. But for today, for a little while longer, we stay put. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about how Noah and his family remained in the ark for just over a year. We are at that exact mark now, a mark that we could not fathom on Palm Sunday last year. Last year I spoke about the spiritual posture of lamentation and how necessary it is in times like these. But I had no idea just how much cause for lament was before us. And here we come once again to the reading of the Passion Gospel, in which lamentation collides with hope, as we remember Jesus dying on the cross, and as we try not to forget the promise he made to his friends about what would happen 3 days later. I think about our year apart, our year cooped up in our own houses for much of the time, which we have done out of love for family, friend, neighbor, and stranger alike. And I think about what I usually say in my sermons on this holy day. And I find myself not wanting to say any of it. I don't want to speak, I want to show. So this year, because we've been stuck in our houses, I'm going to take you on a virtual field trip so we can all orient ourselves in the place where the Passion Gospel happens. In 2019, I was blessed with the opportunity to go to Jerusalem as part of my sabbatical. A group of about 30 folks from the Episcopal Church in Connecticut went on this pilgrimage together. And on one of our last days there, we visited the Garden of Gethsemane. We climbed the Mount of Olives. We looked out at the magnificent vista of the old city spread before us. And suddenly, Jesus' passion took on a new depth of reality for me. It was no longer just words on the page of my Bible. I could see in my mind's eye Jesus walking into the Kidron Valley to cross back to Bethany by way of the garden. I could see the places where he stood before the high priest and Pontius Pilate. I could walk the way of the cross towards Golgotha. I smelled dust in the air. I heard people hawking their wares nearby. Surely these smells and sounds were the same that day as they were back then. I felt transported back in time to when the city was smaller than it is now, back when the place of the cross was outside the city. Now it's ensconced in an enormous Christian church. Being there in Jerusalem heightened my biblical imagination. And I know a video is a poor substitute for actually being there, but I hope what I'm about to show you might heighten your imagination as well, as we prepare to hear 11 of our church's teens present the Passion Gospel. In this video, I am standing on the Mount of Olives and tracing Jesus' movements on those last fateful days. I know some of you have seen this video before, but please do watch it again in preparation to hear the Passion. And I've done my best to clean up the audio, so I hope you're able to understand what I'm saying.
Okay, here is the city of Jerusalem. I'm going to see if I can narrate Jesus's movements on starting on Holy Thursday. First, I'm standing on the Mount of Olives right now, so Jesus would have been looking at the city as he came over the Mount of Olives during the triumphant entry into Jerusalem. He most likely had dinner in the upper room. That is not an upper room like a second-story room, but a room in the upper city. See, the Dome of the Rock is there, the shiny dome. There is a steeple to the left of that. That's currently a Lutheran church. And they say the upper room is near there. Then he would have left the city on his way back to Bethany, maybe to stay with Lazarus, because it was really expensive to stay in the city. So he would have gone this direction and down this, down into the Kidron Valley right here on this staircase. And down, 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 down. And then he would have ended up in the Garden of Gethsemane. There's another shiny dome over there. The Garden of Gethsemane is just down there. We were there this morning. That's where he was arrested. And then he was brought to Caiaphas's palace. And the church remembers Caiaphas's palace. Over here, where now is standing the Church of St. Peter in Gallicantu, which means cock crow, which is that church right there. And then he would have been brought from Caiaphas's house to Pontius Pilate. So going back across the city, there's the Temple Mount, and there's the Dome of the Rock, to where Pontius Pilate was staying while he was in town, which is underneath this place here. And then you might have gone to see Herod, depending on which gospel account you're reading. Herod would have been in the city as well for the festival of Passover, coming in from Herodium, which is about 7 miles away. And then we have the way of the cross, the Via Dolorosa, where Jesus ended up walking through the city, out of the city, into Golgotha. Let's see if I can find what that is. Zooming out here, there's the Dome of the Rock. The dome behind the Dome of the Rock is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is where Golgotha is. That's that dome there. That at that point, that was outside the city. It no longer is, but then it was. And that's where Jesus was died and placed in the tomb that nobody had been buried. And then that's where the resurrection is. So that is Jesus' motion from Holy Thursday through Easter Sunday.
With the image of Jerusalem floating in your imaginations, I now turn the service over to our teens for the Passion Gospel. As you listen, imagine your way onto the worn cobbles of the city. Smell that dusty air. Hear the street vendors getting drowned out by the crowds. And witness Jesus take his last steps in fulfillment of his desire to love the world to the end and to love it into a new beginning. Amen.